If you have pain with washing the dishes, picking up your child, cleaning out your garage, washing your vehicle, mowing the grass, insert whatever it is that causes you pain and you can't seem to figure out what's causing pain or how to stop it, today's video is gonna show you exactly the way I go about modifying these things to eliminate the pain you experience. Now, one of the biggest things you have to remember when it comes to building a lifestyle or an environment in your body for long-term relief is you have to build resilience in the tissue. Now, there's a lot of layers to this, but I wanna give you at least something that you can start with. Go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. What I'm gonna do is give you a free guide that walks you through exactly how you should look at exercise by itself and apply it to your situation so that you can stay safe, you can confidently exercise, and you can eliminate the pain that you experience. Go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. So this is me cleaning my pool, and it's a blessing that we are able to have a pool in our backyard, but new pools require a lot of work. And one of the things that I was gifted to be able to do was scrub this daggone thing multiple times a day for weeks on end. Now, if you've ever had a pool, if you've ever had a job that is very repetitive, doing things that constantly require you to bend over, move a very specific way over and over and over, that is a bad place for someone who has a sensitivity to that specific movement. So a couple days into me scrubbing every inch of this wonderful pool, I started to experience some low back tightness, and it might have been through just stress that I'm going through in my life. It could be from old neural pathways of doing things like this in the past and it really just triggering tons and tons of pain to the point where I just would probably have to have someone else do it for me. I'm not sure what was causing it, but I just kept it simple and said, hey, I'm doing something over and over and over that used to be a big trigger for me. And now I'm kind of walking back into those footsteps and poking the bear in something that to me was a very intimate situation back in the day when my pain was at its worst. Which leads me to my first tip, and that's to not eliminate and not delegate the thing that you're trying to do. The goal here is to get out of your mind this idea of reduction mentality, right? We're gonna remove all the things that cause us pain and only do things that give us life or that don't cause pain. And instead, learning to modify. Now, modification looks very different for every specific person. This is a lot of times where individualized coaching really is powerful for people because you can modify something the best way you know how, but if you have someone in your corner that's able to show you, hey, these are all the other ways you can still do this one thing effectively, build strength, get in shape, or whatever it might be without causing more pain. So when you're looking at modifying something, you kind of have to look at the big picture. What are you doing? What's the task that has to be completed regardless? It has to get done. And what are ways that we can modify the way we're doing it? Tip number 2 is kind of like a segue from the modification idea, and that is to change the pattern or the order in which you're doing the specific activity. Now, this obviously works really well with something that is very repetitive, such as scrubbing a pool. It's over and over and over, the same movement. Sometimes, obviously, when you're in the deep end, your pattern and movement and requirements change versus you being in the shallow end. When I'm, in this case here, when I'm scrubbing the pool in the shallow end, I can pretty much stand upright. I don't have to bend over. I don't have to do anything. It is awkward to actually apply pressure to a brush on the side of a pool and do that over and over and over, regardless of what position you're in. But in this case here, what I would do is instead of starting in one end of the pool and actually keeping the same movement, same pattern without stopping all the way around the pool until I'm completely done. Instead, I'm going to change the order in which I'm approaching the pool, but I'm also going to change the pattern that I'm following. A good example of this is I might start on the stairs and maybe do 1 or 2 of the stairs, then I'll move over to the deep end and I'll get down on one knee and I'm just going to scrub the deep end as best I can, or the walls of the deep end best I can in a good position. And I might get done with one wall in the deep end and move on to one of the side walls in the shallow end. So instead of keeping to one pattern, doing one specific thing and kind of forcing myself to work through any discomfort or pain or tightness, as soon as I begin to sense, okay, my back's getting kind of tight, this is really kind of irritating me for whatever reason, let's just interrupt that pattern, because at the end of the day, pain signals come from the brain. If the brain feels threatened, if the brain sees if you're doing something activity, an old habit, an old neural connection or old neural pathway that maybe you had back when you were in lots of pain like me. Being in that environment, makes sense to me that you might start experiencing some tension and tightness. So the best thing to do is create some kind of interrupt, a pattern interrupt. Instead of doing the same thing over and over and over, you're gonna change it immediately and go on to something different within the same activity that allows your brain to be like, okay, we're changing. We don't have to worry or fear continuing to do what he's doing here. We're gonna do something new. Now, the third tip I want you to follow is simply to relax. And there's a lot of mindfulness cues that I teach students that I work with that are very powerful and very person specific. But one thing that always rings true with a lot of people is not overprotecting or not guarding themselves while they're doing this specific activity. You and your brain is always trying to protect you, right? You want to keep yourself safe. Your brain says, hey, we have a herniated disc, or hey, we've been operated on, or hey, you have a ruptured disc and you've got degenerative discs above that site. Your brain knows that. So you are going to reply to these signals as in like, oh, I'm feeling pain, therefore I'm going to, let's just protect, let's just guard, let's get stiff, let's make sure we're in this robotic, super neutral position the whole time. And what you're doing is you're eliminating your body's ability to move and to relax and to be able to move the way God created your body to move, which is twisting and bending and extending. Now, you may have been fused, you may have had some kind of operation where you are literally limited in some of these movements, but if you haven't been and you're able to move in these positions because of the way you were created, then keeping yourself from doing them is not a long-term approach. It's a very short-term survival mentality to guard, protect, and keep yourself from doing anything that might cause sensitivity. As you learn to work around modifications and activities that cause pain, you always want to look at how you're approaching exercise. And if you haven't already gotten it yet, make sure you go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. Exercise is a huge element to any recovery story that I've ever worked with. And when you're applying it at the right time with the right tools, it can be a very powerful, powerful tool. So if you're using it now and you're experiencing pain, I want to give you a quick tip. Go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training, and I'll walk you through exactly the way I approach exercise with someone in your shoes.